quick disclaimer before we begin, the PEMF podcast does not contain any medical advice and the content provided is for informational purposes only. If you have any health concerns, please visit a healthcare professional. So welcome to the first ever PEMF podcast. I'm Andy Smith and I'm joined by my PEMF producer, Josh.
Hello. So as Andy said, welcome to the PEMF podcast. This is episode 1. Thank you for tuning in. If you haven't already, please drop us a follow on whatever platform you're listening on. And if you are on Spotify, please drop us that 5-star review. But you've probably already seen by the title, what we're going to be going over today is a little bit more kind of about Andy and kind of his story with PEMF and kind of his journey with PEMF up till now. So Andy, what kind of role does PEMF play in your life currently?
I've been involved with PEMF therapy now for near enough 10 years. We'll go into a little bit later how I first got into PEMF and where it came from. But on a day-to-day basis, I'm using pretty much most PEMF devices that we have in stock, different ways of applying them, and PEMF is a big part of my life, to be honest.
So when you actually say stock, what do you mean by stock?
So buying stock, I mean through our company NewMed. So NewMed was a company that I started 8 years, maybe just nearly 9 years now ago, and NewMed is a one-stop shop for PEMF devices. So when I first bought my PEMF device, I bought it from the UK. Well, I was situated in the UK and I wanted to buy a device, and I actually had to go to Germany to buy that device. Get it imported. It was a lot of hassle. It was payments through customs and all that sort of thing to try and get something. And I really struggled myself to get something in. Once we had it, the results for me were amazing, which we'll touch on a bit later. And I really wanted to make it more accessible for everybody else. So my first thing, once I'd experienced PEMF, was to tell my friends, to tell my family. And then I wanted to expand on that, and I wanted to get it to more people in the UK. And setting up NewMed was that kind of outlet where I could make it accessible to people in the UK, and they could purchase through that company. That company is family run, so our marketing manager is my wife. We've got my sister-in-law working there, so it's a really nice little family entity and quite a small group of us at the moment.
So it all started with NewMed, and now we're a little bit further on down the timeline, and you actually created something called Celerate. Can you tell people what's kind of happening with that?
Being involved in this industry for so long, I've learned so many lessons, and one of which is that these devices, the companies that are providing them and making them for the different areas of the world, it's been a bit of a wild west, this journey. And what I really wanted to do was create something that is professional, is easy to use, is affordable, is portable. So it kind of ticks all the different boxes of a PEMF device, and something that I'm so passionate about. So it was creating something that I could put my stamp on, that would help so many more people, and not just within the UK. So I wanted to be able to branch out across the world and bring this therapy to so many more people.
Hopefully we'll see big things in the future then for Celerate, but obviously now we've kind of covered a little bit more about you and kind of where you're at now in a bit more of a brief kind of term. Could you tell us your first ever experience with PEMF?
So the PEMF journey for me, first of all, I was working for my family company. So my family company is a medical business, and they're a manufacturer, and they're actually going to help us with the production of the Celerate product. We go to a massive medical trade fair every year, and during one of those visits, we met a company called Vital, which was an old PEMF product that I don't even know if they're still on the market, to be honest. But we were introduced to these guys. They would talk about this PEMF therapy, and we were kind of like, what is this? And, what does it do? And actually, their big application for PEMF at the time was for horses. My dad's a keen horse rider. My sister is the same. So he bought a couple of devices from these guys just to treat their horses with, and they started seeing these amazing results with it. The horses were lame a lot less. They were more energized, and so straight away we're kind of like, there must be something in this. This first visit was probably 12 years ago when I was working for my family company in the sales department. And then there was a big health scare, which was for me, and it's something that I wasn't used to. At the time, I was probably about 25, really healthy, young guy, running about, no problems, never really had any health concerns. Went to Dubai for a work-related trip. And as I say, I work with my wife at the company now, who also worked for our family business at the time. She was my girlfriend then. We went to Australia after the trip, again, bit of work, then afterwards a bit of traveling. And we went there together, and the trip was pretty good. The whole thing, it was actually a time which I got engaged to my now wife. On the very last couple of days of the trip, I started getting this pain in my stomach, and it was just this dull, aching pain. It wasn't anything really I was too concerned about. The last day of the trip, just before we got on the plane, it started to get pretty bad, and it was this pain that I kind of, if I pushed, it was really, really getting worse and worse and worse. As the hours went by, I'm kind of like, what is this? What have I eaten? What have I done to be causing this pain? We got on the plane from Australia, which was going to stop off in Dubai and then get back to the UK. And during that trip, it was becoming quite excruciating. When I got to Dubai and when we landed in Dubai, I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to make it back to the UK. So they actually sent this little ambulance out to me and picked me up from the plane. We had about a 2-hour transfer. So they were trying to work out what's wrong with me. They're poking me, prodding me. Just, no one could understand. So to get me back to the UK, they basically stuck a load of morphine in me and put me back on the flight to the UK. I remember at the time just thinking, what is going on? What is all this? By the time I got to the UK, the morphine was wearing off and the pain was back and it was excruciating again. And I remember going straight from the airport straight to hospital. When I got to A&E, I think it was a Saturday night, really late night. Probably the worst time to turn up in hospital with stomach pains. And they said to me, what we think, we can't work it out what it is. They'd done a couple of ultrasounds on me. We think it's a hernia, so we'll give you some painkillers, come back on Monday and we'll assess it then. So I went away with these painkillers. So, I can't even describe the pain I was in. By the time it got through to Monday, I then got back to the hospital. They run some more tests. Still couldn't work out what it was. They were kind of thinking it was a hernia. Then the pain got so bad that I passed out, and I actually passed out on a walkway with things hanging out my arms and all sorts. It was a bit of a mess. They managed to wheel me back into my waiting room, and then they, you could see the concern more on their face, and they were like, "We need to get this guy down and find out what's going on." So that day they took me down. And I remember them putting me out. And actually, the next thing I remember is waking up. And it was waking up in the lift on the way back up to my ward. So I think I'd woken up a little bit earlier than what I should have done. And I remember the anaesthetists kind of being surprised that I was awake and sort of saying, "Oh, did you know what it was?" And I was kind of all a bit dazed. And I was like, no, I have no idea. I've only just woken up. And they said it was a massive infection. There was just an infection in the skin, under the skin, within my stomach, that was just getting worse and worse. And they managed to find this massive lump underneath, which was just a huge infection, basically. The anaesthetist, one of them said to me, actually, if we hadn't operated when we had, it probably would have burst. It would have turned into sepsis, and you probably would have died. Which was, a bit of a letdown for the health service in initial terms, really, that I'd got home in all this pain and they'd sent me home. Anyway, after the surgery, so they'd taken all the infection out, and then they'd sewed me back up. And for the next few weeks, it was supposed to be a very quick kind of recovery process, back on your feet, all good. About 3 or 4 weeks went by, and actually the infection just kept coming back, and it was just relentless. Every single time they'd give me one antibiotic, the infection would come back. They'd give me another antibiotic, the infection would come back. And it just went on and on and on. I think after the 6th week, I was like, something's got to change. It was also playing a lot of tricks on my mental health. I was just thinking I was dying all the time. I was just in so much, so much pain inside my head as well as in my body. It was just, and I wasn't used to this. I've never been ill before in my life, and it was just a complete kind of sideswipe. So we went back to the company Magnetify, and we said to him, we want a mat for me. We want to try this PEMF on me, and we want to try and see if I can fix this issue, because everything the doctors are doing, they're giving me painkillers, they're giving me antibiotics, and nothing just seems to be clearing this issue up. They said to us, you've got the horse systems, actually, why don't you sit on that, and, we'll get over to you one of our full body mats as quickly as we can. And as I say, I had to import it from Germany. There was customs procedures, there was all sorts of things that I had to do to get the device in. We got it in, and I was using this device for probably a week. When I first started to use it again, you're always a bit skeptical. Can't feel anything. Is anything happening? The sensation for me was that it was kind of warming my body, and it was just a relaxing feeling. As soon as I turned the device on, it was like great for my mental health to start with, because it just felt really good. But second of all, it was kind of a warming feeling, and it was only 2 sessions a day. It was one session in the morning, 20 minutes, one session in the evening, 20 minutes. Within a week, the infection was gone. I was off all pain medication, and actually the scar was starting to heal as well. Continued to use the device for another 2-3 weeks, and I had a follow-up with a consultant because they knew, every week I kept going back to these guys and saying, this isn't healing, it's, it's inflamed, it's doing this, it's doing that, and they're all scratching their head. Then when I went back to him, after starting the PEMF therapy, he's like looking at me like, this isn't the same scar, this isn't the same, what have you done with this? And again, for me, it was just the reaction from these guys to be, this defies all medical knowledge. What have you used? And I tell them, it's PEMF therapy. It's this new thing. It's, to me it was new, but it's actually been around for quite a long time. And straight away it's, it's quackery or whatever. And they move on with their day to day. And I just sat there thinking, why? Why is this happening? Why have I found something that is just really helping with all these different things? And these guys are brushing it off. For me, it then became a mission to, first of all, set up a company that makes these devices accessible here. And second of all, change the mentality of health in the UK. For me, it was initially, the UK was my goal. More recently, it's becoming, world domination. I want everybody to know about this. The USA and Germany, they're far more advanced than we are. And actually, if you say to a lot of people out there, what is PEMF therapy? They'll probably give you a brief explanation of what it is. Whereas in the UK, you talk to anybody, even now, we've made a dent in the UK market, and we are starting to change people's mentality on this type of therapy. And definitely, I think COVID had a big impact on the way they look at health and the way they process and look after themselves a lot better now. So it was a long journey for me, but we've come so far since that first experience for me. And, and since then, thank God I haven't had these health scares that have kind of come out of nowhere. I break a bone and I pull muscles and that sort of thing. I'm always going to do that because I'm an active guy. But the process of getting those better now, and as you can see, I've actually, if you're watching this podcast, I've got a device strapped to my arm at the moment, which is the new Accelerate device. Because of the weight training I do, and I've kind of tweaked a muscle in that area, and I'm treating it as we speak. So I'm always kind of strapped to something and healing something. And the American guys call PEMF therapy, people that use PEMF therapy, superhumans, because they recover quicker. They, they don't get as ill as often, and all these sorts of things. So that was kind of the starting point for me for PEMF therapy and where we've got to now.
So because of this past experience then, was this the reason you wanted to actually make NewMed?
Yeah, and that's it. And the funny thing is now, I'm not bored of it. I shouldn't say I'm bored of it, but people come to me now and they're like so excited because they've had this condition for so long, and this condition has changed their lives. It's a chronic condition. It's been with them for 20, 30 years. They've introduced PEMF therapy into their life. And, it's not the silver bullet. You have to also be eating right. You have to be moving and all these sorts of things. There's a lot of things that come into this, but PEMF therapy has a direct response in the cells in the body, and it also has a response on the blood. So that creates an environment to heal better. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what PEMF therapy does. And it's trying to get people to see that. And when they do, they come back to us and they say how amazing this therapy is and what the changes they've had and how, but for me, it's a daily feedback. It's just, I get these emails now and I get these people calling us and it's great to hear. And I love to hear those stories and I want people to tell me those stories, but it's almost like a daily occurrence now for us, which is great. And I feel like we're starting to achieve our goal.
So kind of going back to when you first started in the industry compared to now, would you say it's actually changed quite a lot, for better, for worse? Would you say it's not really changed, or?
It has changed quite a lot, yeah. Huge amounts in different areas. So we're starting to see a lot more PEMF manufacturers popping up now, which is good. One of our main goal was to make this therapy a bigger thing, make this, make more people involved, make more manufacturers, we want people to be buying all sorts of different devices. However, there are some devices out there that are kind of introducing PEMF to other technologies, and they're not doing it at the right intensities, or they're not doing it at the right frequency. So there is a deep level of understanding to PEMF therapy, and there has to be a way to make these devices better. Some of the best devices on the market are the ones that are 20, 30 years old. They may look 20 or 30 years old, and people don't really want to put them in their house or in their physiotherapy practice because they look old, but actually they're probably the best device on the market, and that's why they've been there. So yeah, we're seeing more people being involved, but we are seeing more cheaper products being put together and calling themselves PEMF devices. So there is still a level of understanding that has to go into it when buying a device. But mainly for me, I think, 10 years ago, when you said to someone, what is PEMF therapy? I can bet £1,000 on it that they would turn around and say, no idea. We're going to trade shows now, and we're going to health talks and exhibitions and all these sorts of things. And PEMF therapy is like becoming a title in a talk, or it's becoming, or a doctor's talking about it, or and then when you say, people are coming up to us now, oh, your device does PEMF therapy, great. I've got this device, but I want, these three, and it's just, so yeah, it's great. It's becoming an easier product to talk about because people are actually understanding how it works a bit better. So we don't have to start from ground zero, a lot of people. So yeah, it's come a long way.
So with that then, are you kind of excited for what PEMF holds in the future and the kind of future of the whole PEMF industry?
Definitely, I'm really excited. And my dad's always said this, and I think PEMF should be a household item. Like everybody has a kettle, everybody has a toaster, everybody should have a PEMF device. PEMF is pulsed electromagnetic fields. We're talking about electromagnetic fields, and the earth produces its own electromagnetic field. And that is what nature gives to everybody. And you can't live without that magnetic field. If the earth didn't have that magnetic field, our bones would degenerate, our health would deteriorate. That's what is known as grounding. People go out and they stand in, a nice wooded area, or they walk on their grass with no shoes on. They're subject to that grounding effect, basically, which is the magnetic fields from the earth. Because of the buildings, because of our shoes, because of our cars, everything, we are kind of taken away from that therapy. So PEMF is something that is it's artificial, but it's not artificial, because what we're doing is creating a magnetic field, which is a natural magnetic field, and we're bringing that back into people's lives. So in turn, we're seeing that people that are using PEMF it's like living in the outside again. And bringing that PEMF devices into the house is bringing nature back into the house, really. So the future for me, my ultimate goal is to see everybody having one of these, some form of PEMF device in their house, in their car, in somewhere, so that, you can get those natural frequencies again.
So we've spoke already kind of about some of the variables that you can look at when you are going to buy a PEMF device. We won't go too deeply on it in this episode, just because that was kind of one of my future plans for one of the other episodes. But if you could kind of just give someone one quick piece of advice that they could kind of use if they are looking to buy PEMF, or they're at that buying stage and they're just not too sure, what kind of one piece of advice very quickly would you give someone?
So, yeah, very hard answer, very, very tricky question to answer very quickly, but that's what people want these days. They want a quick answer to, what is it that I want to look at? The first thing is obviously make sure the device does PEMF therapy. You need to be looking at the technical side of things, and I think 1 Gauss, which is the magnetic strength, is a minimum. So anything less than 1 Gauss, really isn't worth purchasing, because the magnetic field loses its intensity as it goes further away from the device. So anything less than 1 Gauss, basically, as soon as you move about that far away from the device, the intensity's gone, the field is gone. There's no benefit from that anymore. So for me, a minimum of 1 Gauss, a target for me would be about 50 Gauss, between 30 and 50 Gauss for a full body system. You can get devices that go up to like 30,000 Gauss and that sort of thing. They're like MRI scanner intensities. That's better suited for very professional users or in clinics, that sort of thing. But for the everyday home user, look for something between 30 and 50 Gauss. And when we're talking about intense frequencies of PEMF devices are generally very low, anything up to about 100 hertz. So they're seen as therapeutic frequencies. The Earth gives off 8 hertz. So anything around those is natural frequencies. When people worry about EMFs, we hear EMF in the media quite a lot, and that's to do with electromagnetic frequencies. And they're the frequencies that are being used by phones, microwaves, that sort of thing. But we're talking about gigahertz with those devices. So it's a magnetic frequency, but it's a very, very, very unnatural frequency. So really, key points for me, make sure it's over 1 Gauss, ideally between 30 and 50 Gauss. A full body system is like key for me. If you want to get the full benefits of a PEMF device, you should start with a full body PEMF device, because you do get localized devices very similar to what I've got on my arm, but this actually you can plug in a full body system to it as well. So if you can get a device that does localized and full body, perfect. But some people like to go for the cheaper localized devices to start their journey, and then they work their way up to a full body device. But it's not the way I would say. If you want to get the maximum benefits, full body systems are the key. Other than that, my company NewMed, and as I say, we are going global. We're trying to cover all corners of the globe. Come to us for advice, because we can really kind of talk about your individual circumstances, and we can point you in the right direction to find the right device that suits you.
Yeah, loads of great points there. Loads of value, I think, has been brought from this podcast. I would just like to say, anyone who is maybe interested in buying a PEMF device, please check out NewMed. They'll be linked in the description of this podcast, and that is where you'll be able to purchase the device. Additionally, if you want any kind of advice, or if you have any questions about any specific device or anything like that, please feel free to contact us at NewMed via our phone, email, or any social platform that we do have, and we'll be more than happy to help.
So thanks a lot for listening, giving us your time today. Whatever platforms you're listening to, could you give us a follow? And, if you're listening on Spotify, a review would be absolutely amazing. We're going to try and bring these podcasts out every Wednesday. as much as we can fit in, basically. And, the more likes and follows we can get, the more special guests we can include, and we can talk more on PEMF and go into the science and more depth behind it all.